I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you so much for talking about it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Since being elected in 2014, Lord Mayor Nuatali Nelmes has served Newcastle for almost a decade. Since we're all about entertainment, lifestyle and music, we wanted to put Lord Mayor Nuatali Nelmes into the hot seat to find out her favourite things about Newy. Let's get into it. I'd love to start off with a question for our audience. I'd love to know who's your favourite local band at the moment?
Well, that's an easy answer for me because it's Surf Trash.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Lockie Jackson, who plays in the band, and the other members are brothers. And they're from like the greater Newcastle area, but they've toured in the US and they go down and play. They're really cool. So I've just known him since he was little, and so I'm a big fan and I follow his band. Yeah, they're great. Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah.
If you're heading out for a late night eats, are you usually a kebab fiend or do you like a Macca's run?
Yeah, this is such a young person question. So, it's all good because I'm just thought, should I answer it as if I was young or what I would have done in Newcastle back in the day, like the 90s?
Yeah.
Is, when I probably would have gone out.
Yeah, tell us about that,
Late
please.
90s. So I would have probably got kebabs.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. But if you're in that place at that time of night, like if you're needing a kebab, it's not good, is it?
No,
it's no good. It's no good. Yeah.
But to be fair, it is a bit of a good prevention, method because the next day you feel a lot better.
Do you though?
Yeah, with the kebab.
Do you though?
Minus the kebab, you feel so much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know the is it the book He Died with a Falafel in His Hand?
No.
Yeah. Look that one up. I would say at my age, late night food is more like Goldberg's.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I'm probably not going to, go out and I'll probably run into my children and that'll be embarrassing for them if I'm out, like, looking for kebabs at midnight.
Yeah, true.
That's
fair. Are you a cat or a dog person?
Well, I have a beautiful little dog called Ginger. Aww. So that probably answers that question. But I do like cats. My cousin, who I'm very close with, she has a beautiful Siberian cat named Casper. Is the most beautiful cat I've ever seen. So, but little Gingy, I'm obsessed with her. So the whole family. She's a little cavoodle, but she's probably not of a very purebred, so no one can tell what she is. But she's the best dog. But you're going to also love this. I have a rabbit.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yes.
What's the rabbit's name?
Chili.
Yeah,
so it's my daughter's rabbit, but she sort of looks after it, but sort of doesn't.
Right.
So little Chili Chicken, the rabbit, and I are friends. Like, she lets you know what she wants. Like, I can communicate with the rabbit. Yeah, she's gorgeous. And my other daughter has a lizard.
Okay.
Named Pepper. So we've got Ginger, Chili, and Pepper. So we've got 3 pets these days.
And have you always had lots of different animals in the house?
Well, we did have Weimaraners when I was young and when Stuart and I first got married and had a house, like those beautiful grey dogs. And then when they passed on, our children were little and were very busy, as you could imagine. And we wanted them, but we didn't want to get pets if we weren't home enough to look after them. And you know what little kids are like. They love them, but they also, pull at them. And so we've been wanting to get a dog for ages, and then COVID hit. So I was like, this is the moment. So it was sort of like a flow-on effect. As COVID hit, Ginger arrived, then the lizard arrived, and then the rabbit arrived. And so the lizard and the rabbit were my 2 daughters.
Right, okay.
Insisting on they wanted their own pets.
Okay. Yeah. Can you tell us about your favourite thing to do with Ginger out around Newcastle?
Well, we just go for walks with her.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, she's fast too. We'll go to, there's quite a few off-leash dog areas, and we've built in North Lambton a dog park that has a separated area for small dogs and also for big dogs. And it's become quite a meeting point for the community. We've recently just passed a motion at council to get a lighting for the dog park, and there's a whole dog park community set up around there. Ginger's funny though; she's quite small, and I feel like she doesn't identify as a dog. So she's really hopeless with other dogs because she's scared of them all. And then she just wants me to carry her around.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it's not like she's not, winning on I'm the, greatest. She sort of looks at other dogs, and I'm like, oh, I think Ginger identifies as one of our family members.
Really?
Yeah.
So more human than dog?
Yeah,
Okay.
because she's small, so she lives inside, and we've modified the house to get a doggy door so she comes and goes as she pleases.
Beautiful.
And, yeah.
Royalty in the house.
Yeah.
So going back to music, a few years ago you took a class with the Newcastle Music School to do a little bit of DJing. Love to know, are you still DJing?
Oh, I wish. It was such a fun night, and heaps of people turned out, and we had the best time. But thank goodness for the music school and the DJs that helped me. Like, they let me spin it a little bit, but there's some skill sets I have, but I don't think if someone just let me loose with decks, I would be any good at all.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but it was so fun. And you know how busy I get in this role. I don't know if I'd have time to take up side DJing, but I do like DJ music. Like so Newcastle was very grungy in the 90s, and a lot of our music and culture reflected that when I was growing up. But I really liked house music.
Awesome.
Yeah, so these days when you can go to festivals and go to big events that have DJs, I love it. That's the type of, I like dance music, and I like a really good bass beat.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Can you remember many of those bands that you were, or musos that you were into back in the day?
Well, Silverchair were at school with me, so they kind of grew up and, went on to amazing success. And a lot of the Screaming Jets were a bit older. So Silverchair were a little bit younger, and the Jets were a little bit older, and they were all at St Francis Xavier mostly, or Mara's Brothers, I think it was back then, and they were all from that. So they were two of the bigger bands that people would go and see. And then there were a lot of, you just go out in Newcastle and there was always music. And that's another thing that we have really pushed, is trying to make sure that there was opportunities for musicians starting out, because we've produced so many amazing musicians in all the different venues, and make sure live music was allowed to be played. Because post those days in the 90s, you really saw, what I saw, and this is before I got elected to council, so I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and the city centre started to gentrify. Okay. So apartments started to be built in the city centre. And this is when my father was on council, and then there was a big outcry about, a nightclub potentially going in the bottom of the post office. Mind you, a block away was what was Leroy's, and then turned into the Mercury Bar, and then the M Bar, which everybody went to on a weekend. And I was like, well, what's so bad about that? That's a completely normal use. And I don't know if people remember this story, but in the end, the people wanting to redevelop the post office, which is still sitting, not redeveloped, walked away.
Wow.
Walked away from it because they could not get an approval to operate a music and nightlife venue underground at the bottom, when all around that area, that's exactly what happened. So that gentrification, and also the lockout laws, and sort of bad behaviour, really kind of crushed that nightlife and that music scene for quite some time in Newcastle. And what we did back when I first got elected was we invented a small bars policy to really try and diversify the offering, and we're seeing many more opportunities, and we want to make sure there's more. We don't want to see historic venues being closed down, because we do have a mix, and a really important mix, of people moving back into the city centre. And that has been the cornerstone of the success of the renewal of the CBD, is both having people live in the city centre and work in the city centre, and also recreate, to have it all in together. It has to all mix together. Just having one or the other isn't a city.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about your dad, who was on council. Yeah. Do you feel like you learnt anything from his journey and time in council?
Yeah, absolutely. Dad was quite a staunch environmentalist. So one of the main things he gave me, and people probably think he would tell me, lots of detail or what to do. No, he completely stepped away. And council is hard for all councillors, not just me. It is, for councillors, it's part-time. often other people, like my dad, had other jobs and
Wow.
families, and it is a lot to manage. And in Newcastle, probably a higher level of responsibility because there's no, obviously state or federal government here, but it is a really important city in a national context. So there's a lot of responsibility for people that are working part-time. So, and you get sort of, pushed around a little bit and, criticised a lot. So I think a lot of people have been trying to change that culture, come out, doesn't matter what political party you're from, they come out a little bit jaded about their experience. So Dad was really staunch environmentalist, and his main briefing was about all the really important environmental, not only just controls, but vision that Newcastle had put in place when he worked really closely with Greg Hees, a former Lord Mayor of Newcastle. Yep. They really shifted the city, and it was at the time, the late 90s into the early 2000s when BHP was closing.
Okay.
And that was one of their big pushes to really be a leader in environmental sustainability. And I have taken that back up, but it sort of dropped off at the city for quite some time, and that's been addressing climate change, working with other cities around the world and making sure we actually had a team at council rebuilt to address all of those environmental concerns. So that is not just, it's biodiversity, it's our urban forest, it's recycling and waste. It's not just the effects of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions and the urban heat island effect that happens, as cities warm. It is very multifaceted, and we've just adopted a new 10-year strategy for our environment that I'm really proud of, and I think if my dad was still alive, he would be proud of.
Yeah. That's brilliant. So I'd love to jump back to music. We've had some phenomenal artists come through and play in the last couple of years. I'm sorry. Are you okay? Yeah? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you so much for talking about it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Nuatali isn't a very common name either.
Yeah.
Obviously, it would surely get mispronounced quite often.
Yes.
Can you tell me about the origins and what it actually means? Yeah. So where did it come from?
We were all laughing last night. I was at a business awards and it was quite big. It was all for Newcastle and the whole Hunter. And the MC was wonderful, but he just could not say my name. And I felt bad for him because it's a really difficult name because it's got 4 syllables, so it's not normal in the English language to have 4 syllables in a name. So it sort of throws everybody. So it's Nuatali, and it is from the Solomon Islands. So my father's mother was from the Solomon Islands, and her family is from the Roviana Lagoon in the Western Solomons, and it's a very specific name to that area in the Western Solomons. So there are some other Nuatalis in the world, but most of them are related to that area in the Solomons. So there is a Nuatali that is a cousin or a one-talk is what we call each other when we're related from the Solomons, who lives in Tasmania. And there is another Nuatali that lives in Brisbane. She's young and she moved down to Newcastle for a while and looked me up. Like she was like a distant cousin of a cousin.
Yeah.
And her mother's from PNG, and I think her father is related to that family grouping. And she was down here working as a project manager, and she looked me up on LinkedIn and we caught up, which was so nice because it's, an extended family connection, and we have obviously the same name, same spelling. And because she's young, she was like, "You've got Nuatali at Instagram?" Yeah. And so she's Nuatali with 2 eyes. She's like, because I'm older than her, I logged on first with my Nuatali. So that's the benefit. You get all the, there's no one competing for any of those handles.
It is pretty cool that you have it.
Or anything like that. So it is my great-great-great-grandmother is who we're all named after. And she was quite a prominent figure in that part of the Solomons, and the way it's matrilineal, the way they have land ownership, it's done through the woman and the woman's family. So she was quite a prominent figure, last century. Or previous century,
That's incredible. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask just a few more questions. I'd love to know, what's your favourite thing about being mayor?
Oh, that's a great question. Look, it is difficult. It is a hard job. I can't say that it's not. But I get to meet like amazing people all the time. I work with amazing people, like the staff at the City of Newcastle, like a lot of people, like very professionally, I've got to know over many years. And they are so dedicated to everything they do. Like, they are truly amazing. Like, we, set the policy direction and set the vision for the city, but the people at the city working day in, day out are just getting the job done. And I am just so proud of, like, the transformation of that organisation to really deliver for Newcastle. So that's a real pleasure. Like, I have just professionally met some of the most amazing people. There's a great network of councillors and mayors across Australia. And I'm in some really interesting and valuable mayoral networks across the world, particularly working on addressing issues like climate change and environmental sustainability in cities. So that is so enjoyable to see how we can learn from each other and always learn to make cities livable, but really about people and how people are at the centre of all our policy making. There's probably one other day that is one of my most favourite days, and it's just a day of joy, and we do it a few times a year, and it's citizenship ceremonies. So we have 300, sometimes 400 people becoming Australian citizens, and often it is from at least 40 different countries of origin across the world, the globe, have all chosen not just to make Australia home, but make Newcastle home.
Yeah.
And every single person has the most amazing journey and story. And they weren't born here or didn't grow up here like me. They chose to come and live here. And I just think that says a lot about Newcastle. And it says a lot about them, I think, choosing Newcastle. I always tell them they've made a great decision. But I think the stats are there's 21,000 people that live in Newcastle that were born overseas, and I think at least 145 different languages are spoken.
Wow.
So there is a really important, diverse, multicultural society we have here that integrates, I think, quite seamlessly into Newcastle, and we really make sure we're leading in being a welcoming city and an inclusive city in doing all of that work as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. What do you think Newcastle will look like in 20 years?
Oh, that's a great question. So my vision is that we will have population increase in places like the Broadmeadow precinct, and that is earmarked for in 30 years' time to have 40,000 new people living in it.
Wow.
And I really see that as possible. But it is only possible if we do it in a sustainable way, and that means we have to extend our public transport networks, really integrate them. We're going to have densification in and around our suburban areas, but with the protection of heritage. So all of the areas that are heritage will be protected, and then you'll have areas of really well-planned densification where people are close to transport, jobs, and importantly, recreational pursuits. So whether it is, they might play soccer or basketball, or they might like to swim laps or go to the beach, whatever that is, the principle is you want that, within, 15, 20 minutes of where everyone lives. And that is a predeterminant for people's quality of life, not being stuck in long commutes to get to work, having jobs, really high quality jobs that are accessible, but also being an inclusive city. So not a city that prices out, renters or young people or students or international students, that the development and the growth of Newcastle is done in a really, really inclusive way. So those communities are really mixed, but with very, very high class public facilities, like world-class public facilities that are, if not free, are very, very affordable and very accessible. That is the goal we're working towards in all our decision making around the city, and that gives us, sustainable, nighttime economies. That gives us, sustainable neighbourhoods, and by then we will be a net zero city. And most of the power that will be generated for employment lands and also for residential and commercial use within the city will be renewable energy, 100% renewable energy. So we've shifted there. We're the first council in New South Wales to shift to 100% renewable energy. And the work we're doing now with the environment strategy that I cried about is all about how we shift the city to net zero by 2040. And that's a really, really big stretch target, but that is the path we're on, and that is, you know, where we want to help the city transition to. So it is not just wonderful for us living here, but for everybody else that is either born here or chooses to live here.
Yes, I'm keen to see it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Look, it's been such a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better because, as I'm sure, you know, the audience is probably the same. I follow you on Instagram and see what you're getting up to all the time. But it's just awesome to, you know, get to know what's going on behind the sscenes. Yeah. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I follow you too.
Oh my gosh.
So I see what you're up to
my gosh,
and what Newcastle Live is up to.
What an honour. Thank you so much for spending some time today. It's been awesome to chat with you.
Thanks, Bonnie.